system. Yeah. This- So you're cool.
Is that the only one I use?
Yeah,
Okay.
YouTube's automatically gonna pick up.
Where you from? Queen City. City of Plainfield. You know, Parliament Funkadelic, Gary Scheider, and the Prayer Boys. Yeah, it's my home that makes me smile. You gotta rep where you from. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. Plainfield, stand up. This is your anthem. In the city of Plainfield, where I'm from, From the east to the west and up in the south end, we all used to have a lot of fun. Don't matter if it's summertime, on a late night, where we chillin' at the club and the drinks right. J&B Lounge, Anchor Bar, hanging out with the city of Plainfield superstars. Reppin' where I'm from, Hilltop, West End, Third Street, Stebbins, MVP, Arlington, and John Street. To all my homies, rest in peace. But after the club, it's fight night. My city, known as Queen City. Even though everything ain't so pretty, DJ G spinning those wheels while playing my favorite song. That party rockin' all night long. Yeah. Park Avenue separates the east from the west here in my city. Yeah. No matter how you feel about yourself, you're so pretty. Represent where you're from. The city of Plainfield, where I'm from.
Hey, y'all, that is definitely one of my favorite songs. The city of Plainfield, where I'm from. You're live, guys, with Supes of BKS1 Radio. And we welcome you to our show.
Again.
Okay, guys.
2 and 3. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties on my part. Hey, welcome to BKS1 Radio. You are live with Supes. This is BKS1 Radio, where your voice matters. And I welcome you all for a short time this morning as we have a special guest, Sean McKenna, currently on the city council, running for re-election for Ward 2 in the city of Plainfield. And my goal is to help you get to know Sean McKenna a little better. And we're going to jump right in. So, Sean, come on in. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing wonderful, doing wonderful. So you're running for re-election for the city council.
I am indeed. June
And-
6th.
June 6th.
June
Okay.
6th.
Now, explain is this the primary? I think sometimes people get confused with how that works. So if you win June 6th, you are then elected.
Well, so Plainfield, you know, every state, national, state, and local organizations or political parties do primaries and generals. So primaries are anywhere from April to, you know, they can be in August, and then the generals are always in November. In Plainfield, because we have such a high number of Democrats versus Republicans, often you win the primary and there's no one running in the general. So it is a little confusing in Plainfield. And I think one of the other things that's very confusing too is you're a native New Jerseyan, right?
Yes.
I'm originally an Iowa boy, and I've lived in Illinois. I lived in Chicago, and I lived in Boston. And what I don't think New Jerseyans realize, if they've only ever voted on a New Jersey ballot, is that they're confusing. And part of that, to your point, is that everybody on the ballot, when you go in on June 6th, is a Democrat.
okay.
And people assume that there's these columns like it's a general election where you've got, you know, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Greens, whatever. That's not the case. When you go in, we have closed primaries. So if you're a registered Democrat, you go in to vote, and everybody on that ballot is a Democrat. When you get to the general, then you have Democrats and Republicans. So I think that's one of the confusing things. You know, in most states you go in and they have the ballot has a box at the top and it says president, and then it has governor, and the candidates are in there. That's it. We don't have this matrix. Do you remember the old map thing at the back of a map to try to figure out mileage?
Yes.
That's what our ballot looks like. It's
Okay.
very confusing.
Okay, I think I'm still confused.
That's why we need
But
to
thank
change
you.
the ballot. There's lawsuits about that too, by the way,
Okay.
trying to change the ballot and simplify it.
So let's tell our viewers, how long have you lived in the city of Plainfield?
I have lived in Plainfield for 12 years.
Okay.
And prior to that, I lived in Newark for a little over 10, like 10 and a half years. And then I had come from New York. I lived in Washington Heights, but I had kind of tired of the high density and everything. Again, Iowa boy, so I wanted a little space to play in the dirt.
What drew you to Plainfield?
Oddly, it was kind of accidental. I was looking at houses and I was looking at some in Newark, and then a couple of the deals kind of fell through. And so my partner at the time was Googling towns. And I believe it might have been Googling LGBT friendly towns, and Plainfield came up, and we contacted a realtor and came out, and oddly enough, I picked a house, he picked a house. We didn't realize they were next door to each other. And I stepped out of the car, and I felt like I was honestly back in Iowa.
Okay.
So it just kind of immediately grabbed me, and I thought, well, if it's not this house, we got to find a house in this town, because there's just a feeling.
Yeah, we have a beautiful housing market here in the city of Plainfield. I'm 32 years a realtor also. And our architecture, our property is absolutely beautiful.
I would think other municipalities would be hard pressed to compete with the variety of the architecture that we have and the uniqueness of the neighborhoods and things. It is pretty incredible.
Yeah, a lot of our homes have a story. A lot of them have a story.
Very much so, as does the whole Queen City. There's amazing history here.
So what motivated you to run for city council initially?
Well, I have always been a bit of a political / history nerd, and I got my mother was as well, and I got kind of pulled in at a young age. While I was interested in it, I hadn't ever thought about being active. So I think the first campaign I ever worked on was either a local congressional race or it was Jesse Jackson's first run for president, and my mother would drive around and throw me out of the car, and I'd go plant lawn signs. And I did that. I worked on numerous campaigns up to before I went to college. I worked on the Dukakis campaign, and I kind of had this desire to be in a more liberal, state. So I went to college in Boston. I worked for Joe Kennedy, Congressman Kennedy, for a couple of years as an intern, and I always was interested in politics. And when I moved to Plainfield, I started to get involved, and I worked on some local campaigns, and I went door to door and spoke with neighbors and voters, and supported the candidates, carried signs, and I noticed a discontent, and the best way to put it is kind of a lack of customer service. When you're talking to voters and they're frustrated by things and they get a lot of nods at the door, or the first thing they do is they open the door and they say, well, it must be election time, that's the only time I see you. And I thought, this needs to be better. This can be a better service. So I decided in 2018 that I was going to run when the second ward seat was up in 2019.
Okay. To what you said about residents feeling like, they don't hear from or they don't feel the touch of, I guess, the political machine or those in power, what ways do you reach out to residents, and what do you think on an ongoing basis, not just at election time, is the best way to be able to keep that communication open?
Well, it's complicated in that we have a lot of things kind of flying at us, Facebook and Instagram and email. We all have endless email accounts and things. I find the best way is to just walk around and to be involved in community events, to be involved in neighborhood association meetings. And I walk, whether it's campaign season or not. And sometimes I'm walking with other candidates off years when I'm not running. I say that like I've run 400 times. But I go out. I try to go out once a month. I pick a weekend day, and I go and just pick a street to walk on. And I don't walk with a voter list. I don't, I could be knocking on a Green candidate's door, Republican's door, or Democrat or Socialist or whatever, Libertarian, unaffiliated, and I just have communication with them. I get a lot of incoming requests, for assistance or answering questions, so there's that approach as well. But it's really just being out there, and without the pomp and circumstance and the, official stuff, to just go walk around and talk to people.
Okay. What's kind of the consensus that you hear from the residents now?
As far as
Anything, what concerns them most? Like, is it property taxes? Is it crime? Is it, what's on their, what do you hear? What's the consensus of, or if there is, like a general theme from residents?
These are probably not in order of importance. They're going to come in, what I hear often, overdevelopment. Apartments is a big issue. I think there's also a lack of conversation around planning and what the vision is, and I don't know that that's a lack of conversation or a lack of vision on the part of the administration. Crime is an issue, littering is an issue, code enforcement is an issue, taxes are without a doubt an issue. And then it depends on on what's going on. The rescue squad having to close down was an issue, and is still, in my opinion, an issue. So it just varies. It depends on the neighborhood. You have busier streets; they have speeding issues.
Mm-hmm.
You have pass-through streets; they have speeding issues because people are cutting through the neighborhoods at a high rate to get to wherever they're trying to go, or they're trying to cut through to Watchung or 7th Street or wherever. So it varies depending on the abandoned properties. Is also it ebbs and flows depending on what's going on.
In regard to, you mentioned the overdevelopment, can you give us some insight on how that development helps the residents of Plainfield, or if it hurts them, does it help in terms of offsetting property taxes? Or
so it would depend. It would depend on the development. And since I was on planning board for about 8 years before I got on city council, the building across the street, I don't think 1,000, was it 1,000 North?
North Avenue?
North
Mm-hmm.
Avenue. I voted in favor of that project. It's a perfect project for the area. It's a perfect project next to the train station for transit-oriented development.
Is that what made it a good connect? Is that it? Is what else plays into that, and why you voted for it?
The quality of the building plays into it for me. The look of the building, the quality, the services, the quality of the units, the location to the train station is important, because that's, you really do, from a planning perspective, you do want a higher density in your transit corridor, where the intent is that you have a work, live, play sort of environment where people, they call them walking wallets. They can come out their door and go eat and shop and get their dry cleaning and those things. We're missing that part, by the way. You can come out of the building with your wallet, but you got to get in your car and go somewhere to do what you want to do, and that's the downside of some of this development. As I always say, not all development is good development, and I have on council voted against redevelopment plans that I did not think were right for the area. One in particular was up here in the first ward, and I represent the second ward, which, by the way, is I'm elected by the voters of the second ward to represent them, but I have to vote on everything that occurs in Plainfield. So I don't have the luxury of just staying in my little zone.
Okay.
But up on Garfield and East 2nd Street, there's an empty lot. It's been empty for a while. It's some mounds of dirt. It does tend to collect a little litter from time to time. And the proposal was to build a self-storage unit there. Now, picture if you live across the street from that and you bought your home 5, 10, 20 years ago, and you didn't buy it to look at a self-storage unit, which we all know, as hard as you try, they're not pretty. They're okay. They're about as good as you can get. And unfortunately, it's going to go in. So, I don't think every lot needs to be developed.
So in terms of even that issue, how do residents have a voice in that? How are they aware that that's in the planning? If they're, do they have to be surveyed? Do they get a letter? Does anything like that happen?
No, in those instances, no. For the site plans, they would be noticed, so that when the site plans go before the planning board, they would get a notice. It's within, I think, 150 feet of the property. They have to notice the residents. But, you know, that's a great question, because there's a certain level of whispering out information so that you meet the legal requirement to announce things, but you don't get too many people involved to come and speak their mind. And but it also helps for those people have busy lives. You know, people are commuting and they got kids and activities and they want to do their own things.
Right.
So
They're running.
We elect people to take care of that and communicate with us. We should not put the burden constantly back on the taxpayers and the residents. But I think they need to elect people that read their packet and understand what it is they're voting for, and take into account the residents in the neighborhood and what is good for Plainfield, not what, you know, as you mentioned earlier, what the political machine that puts them on the ballot, you know, desires to be done.
One question I have is about the homelessness and the mental health issues that are becoming a major concern. You know, you ride downtown, you see that there are definitely folks that are in need. And these places, quite honestly, tend to be placed in urban areas. And I'm just wondering, from the standpoint of, say, city council, are there ever any discussions, or do you guys play a role in trying to be clear or encourage different solutions to this, and maybe other supports to address it?
Well, I think it's a great question, and it is most certainly an issue that we have, and a lot of cities have. It's not unique to Plainfield. One thing to differentiate, though, is that council has a legislative and oversight role, and we are often told, and by we, you know, usually me, in council meetings, the clarity of, you know, we don't have control over operations. We don't, the city, you know, there's separation of the branches. So the executive branch, the mayor, controls operations, day-to-day operations, the hiring, the firing, the programs that they participate in. We can certainly bring that to their attention. We can certainly work to try to expand programs through legislative activity, but it is a really important issue, the homelessness or houseless, and the mental health issues, which often go together. And I, you know, we don't have a homeless shelter in Plainfield of any kind. We don't have it. I'm on the board of the YMCA, and when we had our building, we had a men's shelter, a women's shelter, and then a family shelter. And since we had to close the building, we no longer have that service in town, which is unfortunate. I think the closest is Gateway, which is in Elizabeth.
Wow. Okay.
So, but it's important to address that on a state level as well, national level. It is a huge issue.
It is. I mean, I see people that live in their cars, you know, and you notice it in the park, certain parking lots. It's very sad. You notice, you know, that they have a car. The car is their home, and
it is. It's one of the worst kind of calls I get is when and you know, no ward is spared from
right.
that. And I've recently got a call about a woman who's living in her car, and you know, and how to address that. And it's the worst kind of call you get. It really is. And I think there's only so much that a municipality can do. This really comes from the funding, and the programs really come from the federal government and the state. And we are not doing these people a service, that's for sure.
Now, could you just explain, maybe for the average person that is not really plugged into politics and how things work, what are the duties of the city council?
Well, the duties of the city council, and let me say, you have, every ward has 3 council people technically. There's 4 wards. There's one person elected solely for each ward. Then there is someone elected for the 1 and the 4 at large, and there's someone elected for the 2 and the 3 at large, and then there's one individual who's at large for all 4. So there's 7 council people. In our role is an oversight and legislative capacity. We are supposed to, 1, submit ordinances and resolutions, whether that is a new ordinance or resolution or an adjustment to a prior outdated ordinance or resolution. And we're also supposed to perform oversight, which is everything that comes before the legislative body. We are supposed to read it, understand it, and ask questions of the administration, no matter who it is, and then vote on it in the way we feel is in the best interest of the community. And then it's also constituent services, which I don't necessarily call constituent services so much as customer service. It is addressing people's concerns, making sure that the right people in the administration are dealing with things, whether it's, I report a lot of the easy stuff, burnt streetlights that are out. But then you have illegal dumping.
Yes.
Properties that shady developers find out are abandoned. They, in the middle of the night, they'll back up and dump a bunch of stuff. So we deal with a lot of that, and it's really connecting, 1, making sure issues that residents have are addressed, and then 2, often connecting residents to services and solutions. And that can include, housing situations and buildings that are condemned, unhealthy living environments, overcrowding, trying to resolve those issues as well.
In reference to, we have a lot of development. It looks like our city is progressing, but how does that development help residents with their property tax obligation? Is there any relief there? Are the two connected in any way?
So what you're referring to is what's called a pilot, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. And I am wholeheartedly in favor of pilots conceptually. They're a way for a municipality to have, like a marketing tool, to be able to entice a developer to come in, and build a development that the municipality would like, that would spark a neighborhood or help improve a neighborhood or change. We live differently than we did 150 years ago, so buildings have to sometimes transform a little bit to fit the current need. But not all pilots are good pilots. They do always generate more revenue than the prior land was generating as far as tax revenues. They do not contribute to the school system. It doesn't mean they can't, by the way. They just don't. By their general structure, their basic structure, they do not contribute to the school system. They contribute to the municipality and to the county.
Okay.
But they always generate more than they were before, but dramatically less than what they would if they were assessed on their value after the building was done and the improvements were made. And the intent of this is to spark the development, have developers invest the money. It's often sizable. The Quinn was, I think, $55 million, to bring the developer in, entice them to invest the money, and then give them an opportunity to ramp up occupancy.
Okay.
And the pilots are paid off of revenue. So so the city gets a percentage of the revenue. So anybody who dislikes pilots, I understand the difficulty with them. But if a building goes up, you want that building to be successful.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, you want that to be successful, because that revenue, the better that building does, the better the revenue going to the city, and the revenue increases over time. I vote against pilots quite often, and not because I'm anti-pilot, because I'm anti that particular pilot.
Okay. Well, you enlightened me on payment in lieu of taxes, but it doesn't mean they're not paying.
No,
It's
they're
just
paying.
They're paying.
Yes.
Okay. I think a lot of people get that confused, that they think the building goes up and then they have no responsibility at all, but they're paying, and they're paying based off revenue. So as their revenue increases, they're putting forth more money in the city.
Yes, they pay off of a gross annual revenue, and it's in tranches. Most of these, they don't have to be 30-year pilots, by the way. They can be structured any way the municipality wants to do them. They have to be competitive, obviously, because the developer is only going to do it if it makes certain sense. They are a for-profit business, so we have to acknowledge that. But they'll start off at 11% of gross revenue for the first 5 years, then they'll go to 12, then they'll go to 13, and then by the last 5 years, you're pretty much they're about at what would be the assessed market, the assessed value for the taxes.
Now, are there any ideas that you have about future development that would be good for the city of Plainfield?
Well, so I am, and I was when I was on planning board, and it wasn't for any particular, genius idea that I had. I just saw, I felt like I saw the need for townhomes, or out west they call them patio homes, where individuals can have more space, outdoor space, things like that, a garage, but not have to deal with yard work, not have to deal with home maintenance and that sort of thing. And we have, in fact, it's the empty lot over here on the other side of Seidler. You see a lot of semi-trucks parked over there. That is part of the redevelopment zone that the 1000 North is in.
Okay.
And that, one of the permitted uses in that redevelopment plan is townhomes. And I pushed on the planning board for townhomes there, but they said, no, townhomes don't sell. No one wants townhomes. And I said, well, where's that? Where's that data? So it's approved for, I got the townhome in there, but it's only approved for studio and one-bedroom townhomes. Now, I've never heard of a studio townhome, or a one-bedroom townhome for that matter. So unfortunately,
And we do have some small townhome developments. Like there's one on, I've sold properties there, on East 7th and near Clinton. Beautiful, but it's small.
But you're talking, when were those, 80s? Early 80s, maybe?
Maybe not quite that old, but
Okay.
within that range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have
Some
not
time
done
ago.
that for a long time, and those are great developments. I know that area.
They're very
well, across
small,
from the
though.
grocery store.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. They are small, and you could do. I thought the Muhlenberg property would have been a great 55 and older. So you could have townhomes and then maybe some condo/apartments and then assisted living, all within that one thing, and it would have a density that was desired, but not have the intense impact on traffic.
Well, let me ask you, if you know this, with the development that has happened, are they required to do any low-income housing? Is there any affordable housing requirement on the developers?
So I will tell you that all but one, no.
Okay.
All but one that I know of that have been approved are no. And one of the reasons for that was that the state has been trying to balance the affordable housing by communities, because for too long communities paid cities like Plainfield to build their affordable housing, and then they got the credit for it, but they paid Plainfield to do it. So we had more than our
Fair share?
our required ratio.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you don't address it. So what has occurred, that there's a development that, for the record, I voted against. It's apartment buildings on Lot 6 behind Bill's Luncheonette.
Okay.
And it's going to have a parking garage that will replace the parking that's there for the public parking, and then it'll have units above it. And it has don't hold me to it exactly, but I believe it's 9 or 10 of the 206 units. Might not be that, maybe 186 units are affordable housing. And I think that is, that's what most cities have done, and that's what Newark has done, is to make the communities more, homogeneous, is that you have the affordable or market rate or workforce rate is another rent scale that are mixed within the community, so you don't have this divide.
Right. Okay. I think that's wise, but I wish it was more of it.
I don't disagree with you at all. Don't disagree.
that brings up another thing in terms of, many people are being priced out of housing. Is there anything, any plans that you know of, any discussions about, how to address that?
Some of those, as you know, it being in real estate, that some of that drives, the market drives
Mhm.
that to
Yeah.
a certain degree, and we do have in the U.S. a housing shortage,
Mhm.
which puts pressure on the market, and then causes the prices to go up. I think to the prior conversation about, opportunities for people to sell and take the equities.
Mhm.
There's individuals in town that have a tremendous amount of equity in their home. They've paid off their home for years, and it's
Mhm.
just continued to increase in value. To be able to sell, take that equity, and be able to downsize to a nice, smaller scale home, so they can stay, or townhome or condo, so they can stay in the community. But from a local standpoint, there isn't anything we can do other than to try to control costs,
Mhm.
i.e. property taxes, which, by the way, we don't have a budget this year yet. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I've heard that it's late, that the budget is late.
It's 2 months late.
Okay.
And I think there's probably going to be a tax increase that's going to have to be proposed. And I think that the council needs to get our pencils out and make sure that we look for as many costs to cut without hurting, you're not touching Parks and Rec.
Mhm.
In fact, they probably need more money. But, we need to get rid of some of the waste that's going on to, try to offset any needed tax increase or at least reduce it to zero.
I would say for me personally, from my personal standpoint, when I look at some of the things in recreation that are offered, I feel like, wow, we do have quite a bit there that's beneficial. Like you said, there could be more, but from the tennis programs, and I have recently just looking over what's going to be offered coming up, and I said, we're even yoga for adults. I see a big change in an effort there
Yes.
to create things that cities need
Yeah.
to engage residents.
Kids, or Parks and Rec has a great variety of programs, and I'm sure there's a lot of programs they do, and they're
Mhm.
kind of like think they're going to be great, and they don't work.
Pe-
It happens,
people don't
happens
plug
with
into
everything,
it.
right? Happens with everything. So you try it,
You
and
try
it
it.
doesn't work. You do something new.
Find something
no,
new.
No big deal. I think one issue we do have in Plainfield is that we don't let grassroots
Mhm.
youth groups flower.
Yeah.
So you have amazing residents who are super engaged in the community, who have organized and created, baseball leagues and touch football and basketball programs that are very successful, and the
Mhm.
kids love them, and they run well, and everything's great. And then they're, often told they can't use municipal facilities
Mhm.
because the city's going to run the program. Why are we doing that? Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? If Bob Smith has got a great program going and the kids love it, the city should be promoting that program and should be doing everything they can to get kids in that program and helping them out, and providing assistance with getting kids signed up. And council should show up and support not only that a member of the community is giving so much of their time to. Those are labor intensive. I mean, I don't have kids, but I
Well,
can't even imagine that.
So I volunteer for one. I do. I volunteer for one. And I would say that the collaboration probably could be better, but there are supports there. And I think that this is just part of maybe having a mechanism or a way to have these conversations where, that this is something that doesn't need to be political, right?
No, it does not.
It needs,
No
just
ego.
no ego. Let's come to the table.
No ego. If
and-
someone doesn't agree with you, but they run a great basketball program, hey, we don't
Hey.
agree, but how do I help your basketball program?
How do I help you? How do you help me?
Yeah.
And I
These are
think
kids,
that's,
goodness sake,
and that's
you know?
part of our where we need to move to build these opportunities and then make the city of Plainfield more. I guess what I would say is more engaging with the residents, and it doesn't have to be something that's politicized. But I understand that people get upset and then emotions go when we just really need to talk to each other.
Well, that works if both sides are talking.
Yeah, very true. So, we kind of talked about the vacant buildings, but what do you suggest the city do with vacant buildings and lots around the city?
Well, so there's complications with programs like that because there are property owners and property owners have rights, so you have to go through some hoops. No one, we don't want any kind of a process where you just, take somebody's home.
Right.
But we need to address them, and we do have a program, a group that works to catalog abandoned properties. But there are state programs where you can consolidate some of the properties and sell them in groups and help move those and get them back onto, if the taxes are not being paid, you're getting them back onto the tax rolls, which does help, offset the burden. Eventually, the city always collects its taxes, right?
Right.
Even if they're not being paid, there's a lien or a tax sale, and that money will
At some point, it'll come back.
it comes back. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might just be a little delayed. But, it's an important thing to address, and I don't know that we're, if we did make a dent in it, we somehow stalled out because we still have a significant number of buildings that go unnoticed, or homes, buildings, lots that go unnoticed, that become very derelict looking, high grass and broken windows and squatting and that sort of thing. And I get a lot of calls about it, and I spend a fair amount of time driving around to just check and make sure there's a broken window where someone's climbing in, and it has an effect on people's comfort, and it most certainly impacts values.
Yes.
How often have you sold a house across from one or next to one that you're like, oh Lord?
It's a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a challenge because, who wants to pay $200,000, $300,000 and, look across the street and it's
and
not.
there's a car in the yard or upside down.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think we're getting better with that as I, see. Matter of fact, with the level of investors in the marketplace, I'm surprised that there's still, that we have as many vacant properties as we do, because it just seems like people are buying up every little piece.
I'm also a realtor. But I'm noticing. I think some of these flippers are a little strapped at the moment with interest rates and getting their investors in line, and I'm seeing a lot of good flippers. There's good flippers and there's really bad
Well,
flippers.
they're having to access it at a much higher rate than years ago.
Yes.
You're not finding any flips for $150 anymore.
No. And then the money they have to borrow to the short-term bridge loans
Right.
they borrow to do the fix-up have gone up as well.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of one in particular. Boy, they had quite a portfolio all around Union and Essex County, and they have been unloading them like crazy without being flipped. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just trying to get some cash out of it. So
Right.
I think that's what might be what we're seeing here.
Kind of the new turn in the market, I think.
Hopefully, it's just a blip.
Can you suggest some things that would help bring in more jobs for the youth in Plainfield?
Well, we do a big youth program through the city, through Parks and Rec, and through Public Works as well. But I think there's a lot of jobs here. I think we need to get the business owners engaged to start directing some of those towards the youth. We do need to start bringing in more businesses. Like, we're pretty good at bringing in developers, but we're struggling with bringing in businesses. But I think a big thing would be to start engaging a lot of the businesses, and you could easily categorize the businesses too, and try to focus them on a child's particular interest level. If they're interested in the food industry, we can locate that. We've got a health food store, we've got the juice bar. There's all sorts of options, and I think that's the first place to start.
Yeah. I'm not sure what programs the school system may have in preparing children to be ready to have an interview, create a resume, those types of things, or even if we do that at the city level. Now, I have raised 6 children in the city, and I have used many different
Did you say
resources.
6?
6, yes. Yeah, my husband and I have 8. I have 2 bonus sons, and then we had 6 together here in the city of Plainfield. So I've been at every type of school.
Wow, I guess, yeah.
Many functions, different activities. Everybody was athletic, so I, was all over the place. And I did draw on many resources that we had here in the school system, and I think many great things. One time, my kids did at Hannah Atkins. They learned how to build a computer. A lot of great programs, but I really sought those things out. And I just wonder how we can communicate what's available. And with that, I'm just thinking in terms of collaboration between the school district and the city of Plainfield, what does that look like? Is there a strong collaboration? Is this something that is thought about or worked on?
I would tell you, no, it's not. And again, I think it's the, if you don't agree with me, then we don't have much to talk about, sort of a thing. And I find it unfortunate. I, for a long time, kind of stayed out of Board of Ed issues, and I think for two reasons. One, I had my own lane in city council I was trying to learn about. And I felt like, that's the Board of Ed, and this is city council, and they do their own thing. It's wrong. It was wrong thinking on my part. They need to be more aligned. And I had a conversation with the acting superintendent just a couple of weeks ago about how I feel like there needs to be more conversation and engagement between, the council and Board of Ed, city and Board of Ed, because we have to augment what they are doing. They've got the kids during the school day, and then we need to make sure we have activities for the kids available should they want to after school and on the weekends. And we own each other's success and failures, so we can't act like we're in two different lanes. And that dawned on me. Apparently my head came out of the woods last year, and I thought, this isn't going to work. We need to have these conversations.
Now, how would you suggest something like that, trying to implement, getting, people to the table, or like, how would you see that just getting initiated?
Well, so the first thing is having a meeting, myself and another council person are having a meeting with the acting Board of Ed or superintendent very soon to have the conversation about what are their needs. I know what our needs are from the city council perspective. I don't know what all of their needs. I know some of them. I know Board of Ed members. I've helped, some of them campaign, but having that conversation with what can we do that would help? What can we do? What can we do to help, and what can we do to get out of your way? What are we making? There's what else can we help you with, and how can we get out of your way so you can do what you need to do? And that's where I'm going to start myself. Maybe because I just need to be self-educated on the Board of Ed needs. It's complicated. The Board of Ed's complicated.
Well, children today are it's different from when we came through school, and it's a different set of challenges, and they're exposed to so much more. And I understand the school system is dealing, with quite a bit, and having to swivel and change on how they approach things. For one thing that I was introduced to, in raising my children, it's, it was like I said no, and it's no. And so in the school system, it was explained to me they de-escalate. So, they have different layers to it. And so I'm understanding, okay, it's a different day and time, approaches have to be different, thinking has to be different. But absolutely collaboration, I think, is imperative because, that's how we help each other. And I feel like it shouldn't be politicized. This is a need, and we need to do it.
I don't think anything should be politicized. And the odd thing is how things become so politicized in a town that's, I don't know, 140% Democrat. It's just beyond me. It's the focus should be the community, the focus should be the residents, the focus should be the kids. The rest of it's all just noise.
I think we have some great things, so I definitely think we can build upon it.
I agree. And to your prior point, I think that's why I have one earlobe that's longer than the other, because if no meant no, and then the next one was a little tug.
Yeah, I went to that school, parenting. I went to that school.
I grew up at the wooden spoon school.
Now, going back to the second ward, what are some of the challenges in the second ward, or opportunities? Maybe let me phrase it that way. Opportunities in the second ward for, a better Plainfield.
Well, I think opportunities in the second ward involve, well, I have a hard time separating all the wards. I have to tell you, I drive around and I see potential and I see issues, and that's just how my brain works. I think one of the things that we can do is to try to sort through the traffic issues. Second ward has a lot of traffic issues with the development, as do the first and fourth. The third is kind of uniquely situated to not have as much of it, but they have to get into it, right, to go somewhere. I think the other thing we need to start working on is we have this, the Quinn is a very pretty development. And the Quinn, when I was on the planning board, the push was for retail space in the building. And the decision on the planning board was made, there's plenty of retail space between Terrell and Leland. There's tons of empty, unused, underutilized space for retail. Not every building has to have retail. Sometimes they're just the wallets who are going to go to the retail. But we haven't done a good job as a city from Terrell to Leland. What's new there since the Quinn went up? Not really anything. We have a new restaurant going into the White Castle, but we don't, there aren't a lot of like places to go, like lounge, bar, restaurant with the bar, where you can go and just, hang out, sit, eat in the patio, and have a adult beverage and hang out with some friends. We don't have that kind of access.
What do you think our barrier is? Is it affordability? Are people priced out because of how the city is progressing? Square footage may be costing more. Is it the communication, or people don't know this is available in the commercial space?
It could be all of the above. It could be all of the above. It could be people pocketing liquor licenses too. We have a very old school approach in New Jersey to liquor licenses. They're extraordinarily overly controlled, and the governor and the legislature are working to resolve that. But where I come from, everywhere I've lived, you can walk into, with the exception of Iowa for years, having state-owned liquor stores. But for every other state I've lived in, you can go into a convenience store and get beer and wine, sometimes hard alcohol as well, and drugstores. I mean, there were, if you wanted to get a liquor license, you paid a fee and had a background check and went through that process, and you got a liquor license. They weren't, some of these liquor licenses are going for $600,000, $800,000, $900,000. So talk about priced out. You're definitely priced out if you want to open up a restaurant and have a lounge with it.
So that could be a pretty big barrier.
Oh, that's a big barrier.
You have to be creative around
that.
that.
What group's participating in that? I mean, I'm not. I can't afford to go do that.
Yeah.
So who's getting the opportunity to own a restaurant and with a bar, or just a bar, a fun
Right.
bar?
And restaurant businesses are very hard pressed because the margins are low with food, and it's not an easy business.
Not an easy business.
Yeah, my husband has a food truck. So.
Yes. Oh yeah. God love him. God, what kind of food?
He can do anything, but he's known for his jerk burger, his lemon pepper wings, family flavor food truck. Forgive the shameless plug. He'll be at the event tomorrow too, the cycling event. Will you be there?
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm excited
stop
about
by.
this. Things like that coming into the city of Plainfield. We appreciate that.
I think it's great that they come back. I wish that the word had gone out a little sooner on that, because it does. We end up getting complaints because people don't realize it's happening, and then they have to block off the traffic. But it's a price to pay for that kind of activity. But I'm going to come down and get some wings.
Okay, come see us.
Does that sound good?
They're very good. Extremely good. Okay, shameless plug. I'm
Shameless.
sorry.
That was two.
I was too. It's great to have a platform. Now, let's see. What would you like to communicate to the voters in the second ward about your reelection, and why you feel that you are the person for that position for councilman?
Well, I can express what I feel, and the reason that I ran is because I feel like I'm an independent Democrat who is wanted to serve my community, whether it's the second ward or all of Plainfield, and to advocate for Plainfield. So what I would say is that if you want an independent approach and thinker who asks tough questions, who reads their packet, who has an understanding of land use laws and pilot agreements and the other intricacies of legislating on a city council, then I think the choice is pretty clear. I'm engaged with the community. I understand the needs. I keep a spreadsheet of every issue that I get a call about or I notice with, and I track the deadlines. And I was looking at it the other day. It's like over 400 that I've helped deal with. And I think the independent-minded Democrat to have a voice on the city council for people devoid of the machine politics. And I don't think people understand necessarily, you have checks and balances, and you have the mayor and you have the council. You don't have the mayor and the council. You have the mayor and the council. And the council has oversight of the mayor, of the administration, the executive branch. And we pass the budget and we approve appropriations and all the things that go with that. Members of this body are elected via the political machine, whose head is the person they have oversight over. So the mayor is the chair of the regular Democratic Party. Not all Democrats, just the regular Democratic Party is actually a legal entity. And the mayor decides who runs on his column. So how are these people independent to have oversight over the person that puts them on the ballot, pays for their elections, has staff that does this? I run by myself. I do my own Facebook. I walk with my own clipboard. I put in my own signs. I think that's the kind of representation that we need, and not this organizational political machine thing that is not independent. They're not independent of the other branches of government.
Now, I got a fun question for you.
A fun one.
A fun one. What's on your playlist right now?
Oh, what's on my playlist? Yesterday I got into a Gladys Knight thing. So, I don't know how it dawned on me, because my mother was a big Gladys Knight fan. So I somehow thought of her yesterday and started playing Gladys Knight. So I was driving in the car, competing with some other more recent, current music. But that was my most recent play. Was yesterday. It was pretty much Gladys Knight I had to work, so from about 4:30 on, it was Gladys.
It was a Gladys Knight
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Now, and
By the way, I can't sing Midnight Train to Georgia and pick a side. I try it, and I can't.
You can't
Sometimes
do it.
I'm her, sometimes I'm a pimp. It's impossible, because they both have fun parts.
Now, with this being the 50th year, the celebration of the golden era of hip hop, who's your old school hip hop group?
So I kind of have to go with like a hip hop R&B combo, Mary J. Blige. So
Okay, she comes from the golden era, even though she's a singer. But
yeah, that one just is kind of my fallback.
Mary's your girl.
Yeah. I actually,
Okay.
she helped me lose, I think, well, this was pre-COVID, so I still have my COVID. I have my COVID-19. But she actually helped me lose probably 18 pounds, because I would run on the treadmill to No More Drama.
Oh.
Yeah, the extended mix. So it was really awesome.
That might be a good song.
No,
We got
you're right.
a lot of drama. A lot of drama.
You know what? Maybe that's my campaign theme song.
Now, give us a fun fact about you, something we don't know. It's a fun fact.
Oh my gosh, what is a fun fact? Gosh, that's a good question. You s-
I know you got a little fun in you, I could tell.
You, I
stomped him.
You stumped me on that one. I mean, I don't know what is a fun fact. What's a fun fact about me? I'm a great cook. Is that fun?
Hey,
Is that
I love to eat.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you an interesting fact is so I'm from Iowa, and I lived in a town about it's called Waterloo, Iowa, very similar to Plainfield. Although when I was growing up, I would say it was about 90% segregated. Not in where people worked or anything, but where people lived. It was 90% segregated. And my mother, God bless her, being the progressive that she was, there was a program that still to this day shocks me, that was in Iowa. And I was bused to the east side of town to go to school. So it was a 90%, probably 90% African American, 10% white, probably 10% other. I don't know that it was that 10% was all white. But Nicole Hannah Jones, who created the 1619 Project, is from my hometown.
Okay.
Who I did not know that until that book came out. That she's about 6 years younger than me, and she was in the same program. She was bused to my school. That was by my house, and I was bused to the school by her
Wow.
house. Yeah. So that she's probably I think she's probably the most influential, meaningful person that's probably come out of Portland. Other than a tractor designer, which has its has its place. We need tractors.
New tractors. Yeah, I'm just learning about the 1619 project. I just heard a little bit about it. But
It's
yeah.
a really great book, but it's not a beach read. It's a heavy book and has some really amazing short stories and poems in it. So I encourage you to read it, but make sure none of the 6 plus the 2 bonus are running around. You need undivided time to actually read it.
Well, thank goodness the youngest is 18, and that mom kind of does her own thing
Oh,
now.
good. I don't know. 18-year-olds aren't usually quiet though, are they? They still
No,
need.
he's good. He's working. I'm
Okay.
blessed. He's in college in PA, but home for the summer. So
Oh, nice. That's
I'm
nice to have
enjoying
them on
that.
my back.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Good.
I'm one of those crazy folks that can't get enough of the kids. 17 grandchildren. Come on over. 17.
Are you kidding me?
Not at all.
How do you have time to do this?
We make it work. It's a miracle one of them is not here with me helping
Holy
produce.
moly, 17 grandkids.
But I definitely want to thank you, Sean McKenna, for
Well, thank
coming.
you.
I feel like, we were able to get people to know you a little better, understand some of the issues that you're advocating for. And I wish you the best.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity. And this is everybody's looking behind or at us, but this is a great operation here and really wonderful people. So it was
Thank you.
easy to coordinate and just a lovely time. So I appreciate it. Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So June 6th?
Tuesday, June 6th, column C.
Okay.
And don't let those signs you see make you think that column C aren't Democrats too. A, B, and C, and whatever else is after that, they're all Democrats.
So Plainfield, definitely June 6th, that is when your voice will be heard. And just like BKS1 Radio, where our platform is, this is the place where your voice can be heard. So lock in, get as much information as you can so you can be informed and make great decisions. So as we go out, I want to play the Plainfield Anthem for you by Tony Coleman. And look, I want to see you at the bicycle race tomorrow, Sunday, downtown. I want to see you at the 4th of July celebration. Just forgive the background on this real quick, but I'm going to show you that form. You don't want to miss it. You want to be at the parade. It's the 99th parade for the city of Plainfield. And also the celebration of the concert that's going to take place in the park, Cedarbrook Park, starting at 3 o'clock. So you don't want to miss it. Plainfield's very own will be out there along with some additional heavy hitters. So as we go out, I want you to enjoy the Plainfield Anthem song.
Queen City.
All right, Queen City. That's my city,
City
y'all.
of Plainfield.
BKS1 Radio
Parliament,
with Supes.
Funkadelic, Gary
Yes, sir.
Scheider, and the Prayer Boys. Yeah, it's my home that makes me smile. You gotta rep where you from. Y'all mean? Yeah, man. Plainfield, stand up. This is your anthem.